All right, so this morning we're starting a new series called Blessed, and this is something we've done in-house. So if you're in a small group, over the next 2 weeks, we're wanting you to go through our curriculum, Blessed. So these are two teachings. They're different than what I talk about the next 3 weeks here on Sunday morning. The one this week is really cool. I go through and I just look at what Jesus talks about money, and then the last one we look at some multiplication stuff. It's really cool stuff. So if you're in a small group or you're the small group leader, make sure you get this before you go so you're resourced this week. Those are the small group table on your right-hand side as you're leaving. And also we have 10 questions for each of the 2 weeks. And I would also encourage you, if you're not in a small group, all the stuff is online. So even if you're not in a small group and you just want a little bit deeper understanding about what the Bible teaches about money, take a look at these things. They're 2 12-minute videos. We have all the discussion questions. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with your family, a few friends. So all that stuff is out there online for you to do. So when I first started, I never really liked to talk about money as a pastor. It just seemed like a really kind of awkward conversation to have. And now, like today, I feel like I have to. I feel like it's my responsibility. I enjoy doing it, and it's not for the reason why you may think it is. I'm not a fundraiser. You know, my studies have been in communication and theology and philosophy and all that sort of stuff. I have never once taken a class on how to raise money. You know, if we did this every year, like I would get tired. You would get tired. So what we do is we look at this through a different lens. We look at this through the lens of discipleship and what it means to follow Jesus. So there's 4 reasons. That I talk about money. Now, the first reason, and as I read the New Testament, the first reason I talk about money is Jesus talks about money more than he talks about everything else, and more than he talks about anything else. So if you read through like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you will find the topic that Jesus talks about more than everything else is money. So I'm thinking, okay, if Jesus talks about it, we should probably talk about it as well. The second reason that we talk about money is all of us deal with money every day. Like we make money, we spend money, we save money, we give money, we think about money, we stress out about money. So money is an issue that we deal with. They dealt with it in Jesus' time. You deal with it today. So we'll talk about money because the Bible has something to say about money. The third reason that we'll talk about money, and for me, this is by far the most important of the 4. So for me, this one is essential. So God is generous. It's who God is. So who we are shapes then what we do. Okay, so we're all created in God's image. God is generous. That means we're created as generous. Now, Paul says that we've all sinned. We all fall short of who God wants us to become. So then he later says, though, that like we're a new creation, and we can be restored into that original image. So here's what I believe. I believe that we most look like God when we serve, when we forgive, and when we give. Those things. If you want to look like Jesus to your students, if you want to look like Jesus to your coworkers, to your families, to your neighbors, to people in your small group, we serve, we forgive, and we give. That's how it happens. And the fourth one is we talk about money to resource the work of the local church. Now, I believe that Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. I do not, and this is as political as I'm ever going to get in front of y'all, but I don't believe the hope of the world is going to emerge from an election on Tuesday night. I believe that Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. I believe that we're going to continue to do what we've done for the last 10 years, that we're going to serve and help hurting people. I believe in investing in the next generation. We got over 100 kids back there right now. And we're investing in their life, and we're going to keep doing that. I believe in creating environments that allow for friendships and relationships to be created, because I believe that loneliness is the biggest disease in the world today. And God has not created us to live in isolation, but God has created us to live in community. And I believe that we are saved by grace through faith. And what that means is that Jesus has created us and God has created us so that we may live as abundant and fruitful here today, And then the salvation continues in our eternal relationship with God forever. So that's why I talk about money. And that's more than enough reasons. Now, let's do this. You know how sometimes I take a little poll, like where I ask you to raise your hand? Can you guys do this with me real quick? Y'all agree to do it? Okay. So let's do this. Who in here is rich? Raise your hand. Okay, so we got a few people that raised their hand. That's more than you had in the first service. None of them raised their hand. And I know those people. Seriously, some of these people are rich. I know where they live. I know where they work. I know they're rich. And, so I don't get many takers on that, though. Even in this service, I got 5 or 6, I'm guessing. And here's the reason. Here's the reason why. So they asked Gallup, the company here in town. They asked people who made $35,000 a year, what would it take for you to be rich? How much would you have to make? Now, do you know what the person who made $35,000 a year said that it would take for them to be rich? They would have to make $70,000 a year for them to be rich. So what they did then is they asked people that made $70,000 a year, what's it going to take for you to be rich? What would that number look like for you? So guess what they said? I'll give you a hint. It's got 3 digits. The first one's a 1, and the second 2 are zeros. So you'd have to make $100,000 a year to be rich at $70,000. I mean, $70,000 up to $100,000, then I'd be rich. But I know that some of you are, as a household, you're making $100,000 a year, and you're thinking, I'm not rich. I got tuition at dance classes, and my kid went to debate camp, and the kid went to the orthodontist. That took care of 7% of the $100,000 right there. And I'm trying to save for him to go to college, and my car broke down, and this health insurance that I have to buy is just crazy. I'm not rich. So then they looked at people that make $200,000 a year, and here you're talking about a very small portion of the country. And these people would not respond with an answer about income. They had to do net worth. Now, if you ask someone that makes $200,000 a year what it means to be rich, they're most likely to say that you have $5 million worth of assets to be rich. Now, isn't that crazy? Some of you are thinking, okay, if I made $70,000 a year, I'd be rich. Some of you, and I know that some of you are probably making $200,000 a year, you're thinking if I had $5 million, I'd be rich. So here's the problem with being rich. We always want a little bit more security. We always want a little bit nicer house. We always want a little bit more exotic or a longer vacation. So to be rich, we're always going to compare ourselves to someone just a little bit richer than us. So it's like we're running this marathon, and the finish line just keeps moving. We're never going to quite get there, are we? So when I was on sabbatical this summer, my family in Norway was following me on Facebook and seeing that we were getting closer to Norway all the time. So we were in Europe for 5.5 weeks, and we finally got to Norway, and we're going to be there for another week and a half or so. And I got to meet some of the people, know some of the people, and this guy came up to me, and he's a real serious guy. Most Norwegians are pretty serious people, and just the ones who move to America, they lose that seriousness really quickly. But he said, Craig, you're really rich, aren't you? I said, you're darn right I'm rich. I said, man, I'm a pastor. You wouldn't believe how much those people pay me. He's like, well, you're traveling all over the place, and I didn't explain to him about the Lilly grant and that somebody else who was really, really rich decided to give some money to some pastors so we could get some rest and renewal and all that sort of stuff. But I thought about that conversation with him, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I actually am. I'm rich. So I have everything I need. For the last 4 decades, I've never gone hungry. I've never slept without a roof over my head. I've always had cars to drive. And I assume that the next 40 years is going to be the same. Every need I've ever had, it's always been met. And then on top of that, I have many of my wants as well. Yeah, I live a pretty simple life, but most of the things I want, I have. There's a couple things I don't. I've always wanted a sausage maker. like like one of those stainless steel things like you put on top of your thing, and I've always wanted to just like get pork and beef and like put it in there and like dump some paprika and like some brown sugar and just like garlic and like mix all this stuff up together and roll it up and like have it come out this long tube and then tie it up and put it on my grill and eat it. I've always wanted to do that. It's like one of my two wants. The other one's a Vespa. Like, those little Italian scooters. I mean, that's as cool gets, right? I've always wanted one. When Benjamin got his braces a couple years ago, I was like, well, there's my Vespa right there. They're actually about the same amount. And like, the good news is now in Omaha, you can ride a Vespa 12 months out of the year because we don't have winter anymore. It's going to be warm from now on. And but if those are my two biggest things that I don't want, I want, but I don't have, like, I'm rich. I have everything you want, and I won't take the poll again, but I'm guessing that some of you are thinking that you might be a little bit richer than you think you are. Now, we're not only rich, there's something better than being rich, like we're blessed. So blessing only comes from God. It comes from Him and from Him alone and nobody else. God provides for us everything that we need, physically and emotionally and spiritually. God is present with us. Now, we basically got one of two choices to how to respond to all this stuff. They both start with the letter G. One is going to be greed, and one is going to be gratitude. Now, here's the problem with greed. The problem with greed is that you have decided to run a marathon where the finish line keeps moving. Because greed says, if I have one more thing, if I get this one more thing, or if I get that, then I'm going to be happy. So then happiness is always going to be a future event that we don't experience. Where gratitude is quite the opposite. Gratitude says, okay, I have everything I need. I have many things that I want. I'm going to be thankful. And happiness then becomes a present reality. So if greed is the primary thing in your life, and acquiring and consuming and collecting, happiness for you is always going to come in the future. But the future just keeps moving away. If gratitude is your response, then all of a sudden you're running this marathon and you can actually enjoy the journey. You can enjoy like the needs that God is providing, the wants that you're experiencing. So let's go to the Bible, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17. Okay, so here, Paul is actually talking to Timothy. Paul is near the end of his days. He's mentoring Timothy. Timothy is going to take over the church. Now, Paul is aware that many people in the church are rich. So he's telling Timothy how to teach the rich people, teach those who are rich, which is us in this world, not to be proud and not to trust in money, which is so unreliable. So the first thing he says is don't be proud. So if you're rich, this is not because of you. Now, I get that you've worked really hard to get to where you are. I get that many of you have lived below your means. You've used your creativity and your imagination and the education that you worked very hard for to get to this place. Maybe you've invested really well, but ultimately every single one of us has to realize that everything we have is a gift from God and from God alone. The world that we live in, the air that we breathe, your ability, your mind, everything that we have is a gift from God. So Paul tells Timothy to tell us, don't be proud. Don't be proud. Be grateful. And I want you to remember this one. If you're like on Twitter, you could actually tweet this one. Every blessing you don't show gratitude for, every blessing that you don't show gratitude for will you'll end up taking for granted. So every blessing that you don't show gratitude for, you're going to start taking it for granted. Now, here's what happens after that. Everything you take for granted loses its value. And then you start taking everything for granted, everything starts to lose your value, and regardless of how much you have or don't have, you have all this stuff that has no value, and you're not rich anymore. Because taking things for granted has become the new normal instead of practicing gratitude. Now, he says, don't trust your money that is so unreliable. So money can do a lot of cool things. I don't want to make any implication that it can't. I don't want to say that money's bad because it's not. Jesus talks about the blessings that come from the wise use of money. And I look at that in the first week of our video series. But I want to tell you this, money is unreliable. Life is going to be an equal opportunity oppressor. All of us, regardless of how little we have or how much we have, will one day face dysfunction, disease, and ultimately death. So what happens here is we don't trust in the creation, we trust in the Creator. We don't trust in the blessing, we trust in the blessor. Now he continues, their trust should be in God. We trust in the blesser, we trust in the Creator, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. I want you to know there's nothing wrong with enjoying God's creation. That's one of the reasons why God gives us what he gives us. Like, take me as a dad. I give my kids stuff. The reason I do this is because I want them to enjoy it. Now, our Heavenly Father, whose love is so much more pure and profound and bigger than mine, he gives us stuff so that we can enjoy it. Now, he continues in verse 18. Then tell them to use their money to do good. Okay, so we can enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with that. We can have it. There's nothing wrong with that. The wise use of money is going to lead to a blessing. But then tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. So here Paul is teaching Timothy to help people. Us rich people who are enjoying creation, who are enjoying the blessing, we also have this responsibility, and it's really this gift that we get to help others, in their time of need. So where we got this series from was Genesis chapter 12, verse 2. Now here, God is sending Abraham and Sarah out. He has called them, and he says, I want you two to look up at the stars in the sky. Can you do that? And I want you to know that, your offspring is going to be more than all the stars that you see right now. You're going to be the parents of these nations. And then he says to them, I will bless you. To all of us who God has called to be in ministry in this world, which is every one of us, we can all do things. We can all say things. We can all pray things. We can all listen. We can all serve. We can all give. We can all forgive. To all of us, he says, I will bless you and I will make you famous. And then look what he says next. He'll bless us, and we will be a blessing to others. Now, when you get this figured out, you get life figured out, that you're blessed and that you can be a blessing to others. And here's the challenge, though, that we have is I don't think that many of us realize we're as rich or we're as blessed as we are. And what happens with that, then, is that we're never going to experience God's promise to Abraham and Sarah that he will bless us and make us a blessing. We'll never hear those words that Paul told Timothy to tell us, to be rich in good works and to be generous. We won't be rich in the things that matter most. We'll never be a blessing to other people. So I don't think that some of you are convinced totally yet that you're as rich as you think you are, so I'm going to help you a little bit more. One is you have opportunities to be rich and do things that make us rich. So take, for example, if you have kids. If your kids come to this school or any of the other Millard schools, these are amazing opportunities. These are some of the best schools that you're going to find anywhere. These are rich people opportunities. You guys can go to the zoo, and you can go to one of the coolest zoos anywhere in the world. That's a rich person opportunity. They can play any sport. Any time that they want. They can have some of the best coaches. They can travel all over the country. Those are things that rich kids can do. They can take dance. They can go to music. They can get their teeth straightened out. You can save time with money as well. That's something that a rich person does. They'll use their money to save them time. So what I want you to do is maybe go by any gas station out here in West Omaha, and they all have a car wash attached. And just look at all the people in line waiting to get their car washed. So what we're doing is we're spending $7 or $8 or $9, depending on whether you get like the bronze or silver or platinum. And you're basically paying somebody to wash your car to save you time. That's what rich people do. So when we recognize that life, that blessings, that creation is a gift from God, and that he has blessed us in a very significant way, this will change our heart. This will change our mind. It will change what we're capable of doing, and it will also change who we're capable of becoming. So let's go back to Ecclesiastes. This is what Solomon, he is known as the wisest person in the Bible. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 19, he says, "Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, this is a gift from God." So again, the wisest man in the world is telling us that like all this stuff we have, it's a gift from God. So I still don't think some of you think you're rich. So I'll help you out a little bit more. So let's say if you make $34,500 a year. Do you know what that number means? If you make $34,500 a year, if you took all 7.28 billion people in the world, or whatever that number is, you are going to be in the top 1% of all wage earners. If you make $34,500 a year. So if you're richer than like 99% of the people in the world, I think you're rich. Now, let's say if you make $83,000 a year. This one's going to freak you out. If you and your people make $83,000 a year, you're going to be in the top 1/10 of 1% of all wage earners in the world. So what that means is if you make $83,000 a year, if you had 1,000 people in the room from all over the world, if you brought them in from India and China, and Australia, and Colombia, and Mexico, Norway, and the Ukraine, and Poland. If you brought them all in, and there's 1,000 of them in the room, and you made $83,000 a year, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be the richest person in the room. Now, I'm going to just take a break here for a second. So some of you are thinking, okay, Craig, that's fine. I get that. I get the numbers. But I've been a pastor for 20 years, and y'all have talked to me about your financial issues before, and I get they're real. I get that there's going to be unforeseen medical bills. I get that the cost of health insurance is just going crazy. I get that divorce happens. I get that unemployment happens. I know that some of you are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and I get that. But at the same time, like when church is done here, we're going to get into our cars. And do you know what percent of the world's population owns a car? 3%. 3 out of 100 people in the world own a car. You're going to get into your car. You can go get Chinese food. You can go get pizza. You can take it home to your climate-controlled house that ironically, and now you need air conditioning in November to survive. You're going to take a picture of your kids eating the pizza. You're going to post it on Facebook on your phone that has unlimited data. And I hope you're getting convinced here that you're rich. Now, if we can get to the place where we say, God has blessed me with more than I need, I am rich, our life can change. That will change things for us. And here's the challenge, though. Like, there's a challenge that goes along with that. And riches, and Jesus talked about this. Like, that's what we talked about in the first video. Jesus said there's a huge spiritual challenge to being rich. So one of the stories I want us to think about is like this guy, they call him the rich young ruler. So he was really interested in the teachings of Jesus, and he goes up to Jesus, and he says, "Hey, teacher, how is it that I can have eternal life?" And Jesus talks about the 10 Commandments. They go, "Oh, yeah, I keep all those." And then Jesus only said this to one person. He's not saying it to you. He's saying it to the rich young ruler. You can't apply this directly to you. I'll apply it indirectly to all of us in a second. But then he says, well, what I need to do next then is to sell all your possessions. Get rid of everything you got, sell it, and then come and follow me. So do you know what he did? He didn't do it. He went away sad. Now, we don't know his name. We just know that he's the rich young ruler. We never found out his name. And he could have made the 12, 13. And he could have been one of those people that started the greatest movement in the history of the world, but he didn't do it. Now, it's important to hear what Jesus is saying and who he's talking to. Jesus is not, and God is not opposed to us having nice things. You can find blessings of people all throughout the Bible. It's in there. The problem is that, not us having nice things. The problem is when things have us. Now, Jesus saw that there was a problem with this man, that he put his stuff before he put God. The stuff was first in his heart. God was next. And Jesus said, no, it can't work that way. You got to get rid of this stuff, and you have to follow me. Now, at the end of the story, he went away sad, and he teaches us, sometimes I think it's harder for rich people to fully depend upon God. Like the great Christian revivals are not happening in developed nations right now. They're happening in third world countries, where you go to these countries and you're going to see people having to just fully depend upon God because there's nothing else to depend upon. One of the problems with being rich is that it can distract us from our true priorities. So let's say that our priorities in life were to worship, to serve, to forgive, and to give. Being rich will distract us from those things. There's a psychological term called affluenza, that we think we never have enough, that we're chasing the wrong God. We're chasing these idols that we have created rather than the one who creates the idols. Now, let me give you an example of this. Let's just say that we're so busy, that we're busy acquiring and achieving, and then what happens is it becomes really hard for us to sit down together as a family and relate to each other during dinner. Because kid A is there, kid B is there, she's answering an email, he's coming in late from work, and all of a sudden, we got all this stuff, we got all these achievements, but the reality is that we're becoming relationally void in our life. Because the wealth that we have, it can be a blessing, but can also, it can be a curse to us. So I was at a wedding reception, and this dad, he was given the speech, and it was a great speech. He hit a home run on it. And one of the things he said, and I don't know if he knew he was quoting Jesus, but he looked at his daughter and he looked at his son-in-law, and what he said is, he said that to much that has been given, there's much that is required. And he looked at these two kids and it's you guys have been given so much. Now it's your turn to start giving back. You've been blessed so much, it's your turn to start being a blessing. And that's exactly what Jesus said. Jesus said, to whom much is given, much is required. And you need to understand that this is speaking to us. Much is required from us. Now, greed, it moves the blessing into the future. Gratitude, it means it happens today. So here's where I want to close with this morning, okay? I want us to be able to say, I am blessed with more than I need. I hope you all are there, because we are blessed with more than we need. It may not be as much as some people, but we're blessed with more than we need. So then the next step is, I will trust the blesser and not the blessing. The blessing is only going to get us so far for so long. So we will trust in the blesser and not the blessing. And then I will use my blessings then to be a blessing. So let me give you a couple examples. Last year when we were doing our capital campaign, I would talk to people about their investment in our building, and I heard from a number of families, one of the things they would tell me is, Craig, we're given more to this than we've ever given to anything before. I heard that one a dozen times. And I'd ask the same question, so how do you feel about that? Now, the people didn't always use the same words, but they answered the question in the same way. They would say, okay, well, there's some anxiety about this. We're a little worried. But at the same time, we're excited and we know that it's our turn to be a blessing. So I'll give you another example that's a little bit smaller scale, but it's just as profound because like the amount here is not important. It's the heart that's important. So this is like 5 years ago. I remember it was on December 17th. It was on a Saturday. So these two kids came up to my door. I knew one of them. He was like a junior in high school. I didn't know the other one. They were so happy I answered the door. I kind of wondered what they wanted. I figured they're going to sell me something or try to anyway. And they actually gave me $317 in cash. They said that they had sold some stuff. They had made some money and they just wanted to bless somebody with it. And I was thinking they were just giving it to me, but they wanted me to give it to somebody who needed it more than they needed it. So the next morning, I saw a woman in church. I asked her how she was doing, and she said she was okay, but I looked in her eyes, and I could tell that things weren't okay. And I said, do you need to talk? It was really busy, so we agreed to meet at Scooters the next morning. So she told me everything. I mean, it was like this perfect storm of just thing after thing after thing that happened in her life. At this point, Christmas would have been 6 days away. She didn't have money to get her kids presents. She didn't know where the meal was going to come from. There's bills that didn't need it. You know what I got to do? I got to take out $317 and give that to her. Now, what's more important than some Christmas presents for kids? What's more important than the Christmas Day meal is that the look in her eyes changed. Bad thing after bad thing after bad thing leads to despair and depression. But all of a sudden, she saw hope in the world again. And she knew that there's more good than there is bad. It's this beautiful thing. So here's what I'm going to give. This is my book. Y'all can buy it in a few weeks. We'll have them here. You can buy them on Amazon. You can buy them on Christian Book. You can go to the bookstore. I think it's going to come out 3 weeks from today, probably. It might be one more week after that. And it's taken me 8 years to write this book. It was never an option, where the money from the book was going to go. It just all goes to the building fund. God's given me a talent to write. There's better writers than me, a lot better writers than me, but I love to do it. There's hundreds, probably thousands of hours in this thing. And to me, and to those people that I had those conversations with, and to all of you, who have given so much, we're going to walk into that building and we're going to see that, it's greater to give than it is to receive. That we're blessed, that we can be a blessing. Now, I really hope this becomes a New York Times bestseller. And I hope that we make millions of dollars off of it. And I hope the whole thing's paid off. The least you could do is buy me a new office if that happens, all right? But but regardless if we make $30,000 off it, or regardless if we make $30 million off it, I've been blessed, and it's just a little bit what I can do to give back. And being a blessing, it's what God did. It's who Jesus was in us at our best. It's who we are and who we can become as well. And I believe, as a church, all of us collected together, and we believe, and you're here because you believe that we can do more together than we could do separately as individuals. We can be this amazing, we can continue to be this amazing blessing to our congregation and to our world. There's, a couple months ago I was up here and I asked you all to give $7,500 to people in Uganda, medicine and vitamins and medical supplies. Y'all exceeded that. We have a team of people over there right now. They're on their way. And there's going to be people getting medical care because of your generosity. That's how cool this stuff is. It's how it works. So I pray for all of us that, that we keep serving, that we keep forgiving, and we keep giving. We give like we've never given before because that's going to restore us to God's image. So let's pray.